Now, over in Canada, Pierre Poilievre, who is going to be the Prime Minister of Canada, he's a tremendous politician, member of the Conservative Party in Canada. They're just awaiting a new election. As we discussed yesterday on the program, the reality is that when it comes to Canada, Justin Trudeau is in almost the single digits in terms of approval rating. He is going to resign at some point. The only question is whether that is going to trigger a new election. Poilievre, if the election were held today, would easily be prime minister, probably with the largest conservative majority of any Western country right now. There's a reason for that. And the reason for that is because he is speaking in precisely these terms, that the dream is family, house, dog, being able to earn, make sure that your kids have more wealth than your parents gave you. Right? These are the dreams. Whether it's the Canadian dream or the American dream, that's the dream. That's the thing people are seeking. That is a very different dream from I get to screw whoever I want without any consequence and society needs to pay for it. That is not the dream. That was never the Canadian dream. That was never the American dream. That was never the Western dream. And in fact, those two dreams are in direct opposition to one another. And that is not an argument for government regulation of personal sexual relationships, for example. Maybe it is on a local level, but it is certainly not on a sort of broad level. But as a matter of morality and societal directionality, the direction needs to be directed toward family and away from radical sexual individualism as the ethos. Here's Pierre Poilievre.
Met another guy at the La Brat Brewery a few days ago, and you can watch the video of me talking with him. He walked up to me and he said, I have 3 jobs and I can't make it. We're renting. We have no hope. We've given up on ever owning a home. We're renting. We can barely make it. And he said to me, I feel ashamed when I talk to my kids because they ask me why I'm never around and why we can never have a house. And I feel like a failure. But he didn't fail. He has been failed.
That's right.
He has been robbed of the promise of Canada. It was a very simple promise that if you worked hard, you got a good life. Now, it wasn't fancy or extravagant, but you got a house with a yard where you could have kids playing safely. And you could have a nice dog that you could afford to feed along with the kids. And your kids could play safely in the streets. That was the promise. Now, politicians break promises all the time. But you know what was bad about this promise? This promise didn't belong to this prime minister. It wasn't his promise to break. Yep. It belonged to all of us.
And that is exactly right. Now, you could hear that same speech coming out of the mouth of somebody to the left. But people on the left will then say it's the government's job to provide you the house, the dog, and the wealth. And you have no obligations in turn. That's not what Poilievre is saying. He is saying that the dream is that if you act responsibly and dutifully, you will get ahead in the West. And that is the dream. And here's the thing. All you have to do is unchain the people. That's all you have to do. All you have to do is encourage them to act in a socially responsible fashion, to actually build families. That all this sort of bizarre anti-woman hatred that you see from a reactionary right online sometimes that says, well, you know, what do you owe to women? The answer that men owe to women is you owe it to them to be good husbands and good fathers. And that is a direct response to the radical insanity of the rad fem left, which suggests what do women owe to men? They owe it to men to be good wives and good mothers. Okay, these things are owed to one another. They are owed to one, and on the basis of those mutual duties, you build a family. On the basis of those families, you build an entire civilization. All that has to be done once you have family structures that are actually intact is let them alone to thrive. Leave them alone. Let them actually do the things that families do, take care of one another. There's a lot of statistics demonstrating that when men get married, they start to earn more. When they have kids, they start to earn even more. Why? Because they feel a greater duty to go and work, because now they're doing it on behalf of something that matters and is meaningful. What are the things in our society that matter and are meaningful? Well, it feels like for a long time, the answer is not much. For a long time in the United States, because we are very rich and we're very privileged, and because God blessed us with borders that are 2 oceans, Mexicans and Canadians, and an incredibly rich continent that provides all of our needs, that because of all of that, the duties can sort of be put off to the side, and all we need are our rights. But the reality is the duties and the rights are 2 sides of the same exact coin. You have a right to go and earn because you are earning on behalf of your family. You have a right to go out and thrive, and in fact, a duty to go out and thrive, because you're doing so on behalf of your family and your community and your civilization. All that has to be done, guarantee private property rights, forward the family, forward the community. These are not particularly difficult things to do. First, let's talk about something happening here in the United States. Interest rates. Yes, the Fed has cut rates recently. If you're waiting for them to drop back down to like 3%, you might be leaving money on the table right now. Every month you wait is another month of potentially higher payments. Here's a smart play. Consider refinancing with Churchill Mortgage while rates are down. If rates drop further, no problem. Your team at Churchill Mortgage will be there to help you refinance again. That's how you stay ahead of the game. Whether you're looking to make your monthly budget work better or just being strategic about using your home's equity, a refi could be your solution. Ask yourself, are you carrying high-interest credit card debt? A cash-out refinance could help you consolidate that debt at a lower rate. Have you been putting off home improvements? A cash-out refi could fund those needed updates. Plus, here's something timely. When you refinance, you skip a mortgage payment. Perfect timing for the holiday season. And if you're in the market to buy, here's an insider tip. December is statistically one of the best times to negotiate on your dream home. I recently sat down with Matt Clark. He's the president of Churchill Mortgage. What struck me most was his genuine passion for helping families build generational wealth through homeownership. This is a priority to him on a personal level. The experts at Churchill Mortgage are ready to have a real conversation about your options. No robots, just experienced professionals who understand your unique situation. Head over to churchillmortgage.com/Shapiro. Tell your loan officer I sent you. You will be in good hands. churchillmortgage.com/Shapiro. NMLS ID 1591, an equal housing lender. Canada has done them wrong. Why? Well, because even if you suggest the sort of naive suggestion that many members of the left and the right actually want the same thing. They want the families with the dog and the house and the kids. I don't think that's true anymore, but let's assume that that's the baseline. The problem with left-wing solutions to this problem, or interventionist government solutions to this problem, once the government starts to intervene, once the government starts to sign the checks, once the government starts to substitute for the actual function that family was supposed to perform, families wither and die. The intermediate social institutions provided by things like church that actually instilled community and rules and excellent social attributes on people, those go away. So to take a quick example, when it comes to the government and churches, so it used to be that if you had a problem in your life, so you lost your job, if you were a member of a church, then the church would help take care of you. This is still true, by the way, in a lot of religious communities. It's true in my religious community. If somebody in our community loses a job, the first thing that happens is there's now a meal train. That meal train is set up to make sure that the kids and the family are fed. The next thing that happens, everybody starts passing around the resume. Do we know a job for this person? If we don't know a job for this person, can we create a job for this person so they can support their own family? Because the highest form of charity in Jewish faith, I would assume in other faiths as well, is giving somebody a job. So go out and find them a job. In the meantime, in order for that person to receive, they know they're receiving from people that they are neighbors with. And they don't feel amazing about that because it turns out that receiving charity is not, in fact, a wonderful thing for the person who's the recipient. Very often, it's very difficult. And it should be difficult, not in the sense that it should be hard to get. It should be difficult emotionally, and it is for most people. Because you know that you're taking from somebody else and you don't want to be doing that. And so you feel you owe it back to the community to actually do the hard work, to go out and look for a job, for example, to live by the rules of the community. The duties and the entitlements are two sides of the same exact coin when it comes to, for example, a church or a synagogue community that is thriving. When the government steps in and just starts signing checks, the entitlements remain, but the duties disappear. And so what you end up with is an entitled people. And it breaks apart families. It makes things worse. That's the story of the welfare state created in the United States since the 1960s. It is not a coincidence that the populations most likely to receive welfare are also the populations with the highest levels of family dysfunction and family breakup. That's not a coincidence at all. Because again, the government is substituting itself for a functioning system that was not created particularly by man. It was an evolutionary system evolved and then instituted by God, if you're a religious person, in order to form a functional civilization. So when Poilievre is talking about the dream can only be accomplished by families allowed to live free, to keep their property, to live without the heavy hand of government dictating every aspect of how they raise their children, thriving communities that are allowed to make moves together communally. Right? These are the things that matter. And when the government starts to inject itself, bad things happen. Are you tired of the lies and the twists of the mainstream media talking points? Yeah, me too. Join me in my newest series, Fact, where I dismantle and bring truth to this tiring mainstream agenda.